This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with John Renken, a new friend that I've learned a lot about, and I'm excited to talk to you, John.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
So John is a business leader, a leadership coach, a retired professional athlete, and an Army veteran. That's exciting. What a career you've had.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you can do in just a couple of short years.
So tell me what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of walk backwards from there. I know that you're the guru in sales coaching and leadership coaching, and I'm excited to hear what you do.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, during COVID, I was training special forces in hand-to-hand combat and integrating that with what we do in the CQB world, right? COVID happens, shuts down the world, obviously, and it got to be about July of 2020, and the unit that I was working with came back to me, and they're like, hey, we told you that we would take care of it and not to worry about it, but we can't keep paying you to sit at home. We don't have a time frame in which we can go back to work. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because that had been 20 years of my life. It was training special forces.
Wow. So so don't lose track of that story, but you were training them to do what? What specific area were you training?
Hand-to-hand combat.
Just all hand-to-hand? And did that...
And then integrating that with shooting and knife work.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. And so I went back to my roots and went back to sales and got a job as a sales coach. And through that, got introduced to a company that ended up, their owner died, and they gave me the company, which is called Sales Platoon. And what we do is we take transitioning military members, we teach them how to do sales, and we get them jobs in sales.
That's interesting. So you only focus on transitioning sales members?
I'm
sorry. You only focus on service members transitioning?
Yep.
That's amazing. I am working on a project that one day we'll have to talk more about, and it's a workforce development program that we're calling Operation Warriors to Work. And we want to start in San Diego with transitioning service members because that's one of the largest concentrations in the country of service members, and then Norfolk, Virginia. So What you're doing is incredible at trying to transition them out of service to a career in the private sector.
Yep. Well, so when you think about this statistically, right? So the nationwide average for employment for veterans is somewhere around 43 to 52,000 a year.
Right.
Nationwide across the industries. Now, obviously, if you were a doctor, lawyer, nurse, cybersecurity specialist in the military, those numbers don't apply to you, right? But the average person getting out of the Army or the Navy or the Air Force is only making somewhere around 50 grand. Well, in sales, they're starting somewhere between 65 and 80 with commission. Right. So they're making 100K.
Wow. That's incredible.
700,000 open sales roles right now in the United States.
That's amazing that you've taken that on. What we found in our analysis, and I need to double check the number, but my understanding is that about 70% of transitioning service members are under the age of 24 and under.
Yeah. I don't know if it's quite that high, but it's up there.
It's a big number. And so the question for us is, how do we make sure that they find something quickly? Because the longer they go without finding something that makes sense that they can live on, the tougher it becomes. And then we're dealing with other issues and challenges with the service members. And it breaks my heart to hear about homeless service members and members that are committing suicide. It's just tough. So I appreciate what you're doing for our veterans.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
So this former, I guess the owner's family that passed away, they gave you the company. They just gave it to you.
So he was a Marine. He did, I always mix this up because I can't quite remember. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan or 2 in Iraq and then 1 in the other.
Wow.
And unfortunately, his name is Raleigh Wilkins. He created Sales Platoon, was a high-performing salesperson, and then created this company. And then, like so many of our brothers and sisters do, he committed suicide.
Oh.
And so through the process of me getting to know him, there was nobody really to take up what and to continue what he was going to do.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so now I have it.
So tell from a business perspective. So we're Business Decoded. Our goal is to make sure people can learn what it's like to manage, run a business. How do you create a concept? How do you grow that concept? Tell me kind of the history of what you've been doing as you've taken over the company and you're building your business. Where do you find these veterans? How do you deploy them in learning and getting the training they need, and then find the jobs that make sense for them to join?
Man, that's do we have beer? Beer long.
All that. But, you know, for all those veterans that are listening to the program, this would be great.
So first of all, the Skill Bridge program, depending on when you got out, it wasn't even available.
Right.
Like when I got out in 96, there was no such thing. They barely taught you how to do a resume and said, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Right. So inside of Skill Bridge program, they have a website that you're listed on the website. So we have candidates that reach out to us from there. We have an aggressive social media presence, so we get candidates from there. Then there's resume dumps, and then I own the largest Skill Bridge community in the country with 70,000 active duty members called the Skill Bridge Network. So
that is amazing. So as I mentioned to you, I've been working on this project, and what I hear with SkillBridge, for a while, they would allow service members to get into the program. In that last 6 months, they could go through a transition. They would kind of intern at different companies. But I hear a lot of places are reducing that now to less than 6 months because they want to make sure that it's not impacting their mission.
Yeah. So the minimum is 3 months. The entire time I've been doing this, I've only seen the Air Force do 6 months.
Right.
Nobody else is doing 6 months.
Right.
And there is, so on one hand, I agree with them. On the other hand, I don't. And so I'm kind of conflicted. At the end of the day, the job of the military is to fight a two-front war at any time.
Right.
Well, we have 10,000 members transitioning every month out.
Okay.
And then, we're through recruiting efforts, we're replenishing that number, right? Well, the problem is recruiting is down by 30%.
Right.
So that means we're only recruiting 7,000 a month and 10,000 are getting out. So we're losing 3,000 a month. And if we give all 10,000 or 7,000 in this case, 6 months, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So,
and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people. In fact, I'm meeting with the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Labor that's responsible for veteran programs. And it'll be interesting to talk to him because, again, I'm hearing it from you and from others. And I'm just, not to overstate this, but I'm so proud that you've taken on this challenge and you're working to help bridge that gap.
It's definitely a challenge. And some of our peers are not helping us.
Right. So we'll have to.
I'll give you a funny story. So he's getting out, and he was getting out under duress.
Okay.
So I don't remember the whole story now, but some people got sick, and so the Army was doing him a favor and letting him out fast. And we were combining that with Skill Bridge, and it ended up not working. The company was still willing to take him. And then he literally no-showed the company, ghosted me after we got him a job.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, bro. Like, I pulled some strings to get this. And you did this.
So what happened to him? He's still, that's hard. Okay. I hope he's fine.
I mean, I know he's fine, but it's just unprofessional, right? And you look at stuff and you're like, dude, we're out here doing the work to help you transition, and then you did this. It's like, man, don't tell anybody you're on our team.
Right. He went AWOL on you, huh?
Yeah, he went AWOL. And we have it a lot. I mean, but this I don't normally have it after I get him a job.
Right. So take me back to your journey. How did you join the military? Where did you grow up and why did you join the service?
Yeah. So, well, for me, I've always really wanted to be in the military. I have a pretty heavy military family. Like my uncle served, My dad was trying to serve in Vietnam, but had color blindness, so they wouldn't take him. So I was raised in that culture. But for me, it really stood out when I was in third grade. This is a funny story. It's kind of weird. I went into the library and asked the librarian for books on God. Okay. And she handed me a stack of mythology books. And I really got into Norse mythology and Thor and the Vikings. I was like, man, when I grow up, I want to be a warrior. That was me, And, for a long time until I figured out that, in the Air Force, to be a pilot, you needed math. The math was no good. So I went from wanting to be a fighter jet pilot to I'm going to be in the infantry because I do that. But really, and I actually joined the Air Force to do, I was going to do pararescue.
Okay.
And I had some blood work done before because I was on the delayed entry program. And that blood work came back. Now, this is funny. I have Gilbert's syndrome.
Okay.
Which is just a blood disorder that basically makes me jaundice. Okay. It doesn't do anything to you except for I get jaundice if I'm a little tired or sick. Right? Not a big deal. Well, that word is actually spelled the same as Gilbert's syndrome, which is terminal.
Okay.
So the Air Force thought I was dying, and they kicked me out.
Oh gosh. So you joined the Air Force, like you were full in service. You went through boot camp and everything.
Well, no, I was on the delayed entry program.
Gotcha.
And then this came up, and they released me, or I don't know, whatever that's called, right? So this is funny because I remember he looks kind of like you. He's a black recruiter, Peoria, Illinois. I'm sitting in Burger King eating a burger,
right?
And he walks up and he goes, I don't know what you think you're doing with your life, but I can help you. But I was like, well, you can't, because I was kicked out of the Air Force for a blood disorder. And he goes, no, I can get you in the Army. And I was like, all right, I'm in.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. He got me in, and he got me, if I'd have known what I know now, I would have done it differently. But, he got me to where, I was in the infantry.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you enlisted in the Army.
Yep.
And then what?
Went to Fort Benning, Georgia, or now Fort Moore, I think is what they changed the name to. Did infantry school, tried to get a walk-on slot for airborne and ranger school. I had a high GT. I had a 121 GT, but they wouldn't let me go do ranger school as my contract. So I got the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell. And then as an E3, they sent me to airborne school and ranger school.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was your first deployment?
Actually, I was in the 90s. I was 1993 to 1996. I never deployed, never did. I missed everything. I was so mad. Now, as a civilian, I went to Afghanistan twice, but I'm deployments.
And so you left the Army and decided to do what?
I went to college. I got out, went to college, spent 4 years from 1996 to 2000 in Minnesota. Went to North Central University.
Okay, yeah.
Got my degree. And while I was going to college, I was fighting professionally, had 70 pro fights as an MMA fighter.
Yeah, so let's back that up. You just skipped right to the end of your MMA experience. How did you find mixed martial art in the MMA?
Well, so when I was in high school, I was into Taekwondo. I was a nationally ranked Taekwondo fighter. I was third in the nation, or third.
Oh, wow.
How was it? Third in the state.
In high school?
Yeah, in high school.
Incredible.
So my squad leader in the Army invited me over to watch the second UFC. Maybe it was the first. I don't remember. It was the second or the first. I don't remember which one. And as soon as I saw it, because I also wrestled in high school, I was like, I want to do that.
Yes.
So I started training. I actually had 20 kickboxing and boxing bouts while I was active duty. So I started fighting almost right away.
Oh, wow.
While I was active. And then when I got out, I started doing jiu-jitsu and Thai boxing. So I got out in 96, January of 96. I had my first pro fight in March of 97.
So what was it about mixed martial arts and fighting did you like? Like it takes a special person to get into that arena.
It's a retarded. To be frank.
Right.
So when I saw the cage and I saw two people go in and that door lock, that was the most exhilarating, like idea to me. Imano, two people go in, the best comes out.
Right.
Like, and it's still to this day, man, those are some of my fondest memories. It's just a challenge. Like there's nobody to blame. There's no excuses. It's just you. And man, I'm still sold on it.
Oh yeah.
30 years later.
Do you still go? So you were there though in the earlier days.
Yeah. No rules. In my first 10 fights, there were no rules, no gloves. You could still hit people in the nuts. I remember I was in, I forget what the tournament, it was Venezuela, IVC Venezuela.
Right.
And at that point, you could still headbutt and, pull hair and some of that kind of stuff. And you could still do nut shots. And I looked at my opponent and I go, hey, I'm just telling you right now, if you hit me in the nuts, we're going to fight for real. Don't do that. And I was just like, because I'm not going.
Did you have anyone to test that premise?
I have one guy that tested that premise and it was a different kind of fight.
Oh, yeah. So what was do you remember your first fight? What did that look like?
So you can actually look this up online. It's called the Cold House Fights. My first fight was in a state where fighting was illegal.
Okay.
And we were in an abandoned house in Wisconsin in March, and it was 20 below zero.
Oh, gosh.
And you literally watch guys take off their beanies and their jackets to fight.
Right. So how did that turn out for you?
Yeah. I forget my first opponent's name, but my second was Henry Matamoros.
Okay. Wow. So you still keep up today? You still go to matches? Keep in touch? Yeah.
Well, I don't really go to matches anymore because I'm not coaching anymore.
Okay.
But I meet with a couple of my friends and we train on Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 5:30.
Yeah, so I lived in Southern California at one point, and there was a friend of my daughter who was in gymnastics that was a coach. I think he lived out in Temecula, but he was a coach for a group of guys that did pretty well. And I think, if I remember this correctly, he was a consultant, may have briefly appeared in the movie. I think it's called Here Comes the Boom. You remember that about the teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
I wonder if that's Van Henderson's crew because they were in Temecula.
Yeah.
I was Team Quest.
Okay. It could be. Did you?
So I went out there for, I don't remember if it was a seminar or maybe I was there for business and I was like, hey, where's a good gym? And then I found they had a gym there. So I went and trained.
Very cool. So what was so our program is business focused and there's a business to everything, including a business to that industry. What did the business look like back then? Especially in the early days compared to now. So what was the pay like for businesses? What was the training?
Horrible.
Yeah.
At that time, I think my biggest payday was $1,000.
Okay.
Now, for me, I have some mixed opinions about what I see happening today.
Right.
I fought because I wanted to fight, not to make it a living.
Right.
I wanted to fight. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be tested. My first title bout, I made $50 for winning the title.
$50? Wow.
$50. And I drove 14 hours for that fight.
Oh, gosh. Didn't pay for your hotel.
Didn't pay for my hotel either. So I was out of pocket, 13 hours, gas, hotel, etc. And then I won that title.
Nice. And I will say there's something special about doing something for the love of it, right? It's something that you like, you believe in, and you do it for the love of it.
So I think, now I will say this, the athletes that are competing today, damn near any of them would beat anybody that I fought.
Okay, why is that?
Because the level and the expertise of training and dieting and weightlifting and Olympic level, these guys are all Olympic level now.
Okay. Amazing.
So on one hand, it's really good because the level of the fight game is astronomically better than what it ever was when I fought.
Right.
Right. On the other hand, when it became a solely business thing, I think they lost some of the things that made it what it is.
Sure. It's amazing when I look back now and see the growth of the sport. It's just grown enormously.
Yeah.
It's not
Fights are on Disney right now.
right. It's amazing. It's not like the wrestling not like the wrestling you did in high school, but it's not the wrestling from the old days. Like you are truly hitting someone.
Oh yeah, I love it.
What do you think was your best fight? Which one do you think stands out the most for you?
So the one that stands out the most, that's gained the most popularity, has got, I don't know how many thousands and hundreds of thousands. I fought Curtis Stout, 3-time UFC guy, and I knocked him out in 7 seconds.
Oh, wow.
That video went viral on YouTube, and it had something like 300,000 views.
So what was special about that? How did you accomplish that?
Yeah. Well, so Curtis Stout is a really good stand-up guy.
Right.
Everybody said my only way to win that fight, because I was known as more of a jiu-jitsu grappling guy.
Okay.
And everybody, they wasn't disrespect, but I took it that way, kind of the Michael Jordan thing. Oh, you guys don't think I can freaking stand up? Okay. And I told everybody, I'm going to knock him out. And everybody was like, no, you're going to lose if you stand with him. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to knock him out.
Right.
Now, I went and got a boxing coach. He was an all-Army boxing coach. And I was doing 20, 30 rounds of boxing a day.
Okay.
Because Curtis Stout had very good hand speed. He was a southpaw, very lean, very good fighter. I have a lot of respect for Curtis, man. I just think the world of him.
Right.
So we trained boxing, and he was faster than I was.
Right.
And, you know, I went into that bout in shape. I really had a great fight camp, which I did not usually have fight camps so steep. I just and I had a fight camp for that, and I knocked him out with a left head kick.
With a left kick.
My boxing coach was so mad at me. Like, we did not throw a kick for 12 weeks.
Right.
I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
That's funny. So was it, and I know a lot of that is instinct, but was there something that just you saw in that second? No, just did it.
It happened. Now, I have another fight that was around that same time frame that I did the same thing with, which was I was in a really good fight camp. I went and I won this title. I can't remember that kid's name, but we walked out and I told everybody, I'm going to knock this kid out, because he talked about that he was such a great stand-up guy.
Right.
And I was just going to bang with him, and I knew I could beat him on the feet.
Right.
And he walked to the cage and was wearing wrestling shoes. I literally turned around. I don't even remember who was in my corner. I turned around and I go, hey, change the game plans. We're not doing stand-up. I'm going to leg lock him.
Okay.
And I leg locked him in a minute.
Now, what was it about the shoes? You just realized what?
Well, because in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and judo,
Right.
like leg locking type stuff, if he's wearing a shoe, it's very hard for him to escape.
Okay. So he wore the shoes in the match. I thought he was just wearing it to be fashionable.
Yeah. No, I don't even caused him to wear wrestling shoes.
Interesting.
Of it.
Okay. Now, I was on travel recently, and I happened to catch part of the 30 for 30 with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'd seen it before, but I was watching it again just for a little while, and they interviewed Buster, and I guess his parents were really worried about him. they no one gave him a chance to win. I forget the odds from the program, but no one gave him a chance to win. And I remember the fight as well. I didn't give him much of a chance to win. And that's really fascinating when someone like that wins and they have no shot. But his parents were already, I think they were writing his obituary. They were not happy about the idea of him fighting Iron Mike Tyson.
And then he won.
And and had a really good payday out of it.
Everybody has a puncher's chance, man.
Right. Which is fascinating. So you had the name of the saint, and I think your other name was the Fighting Preacher.
Yeah.
What's the story on that?
So I went to college to be a pastor. So I was a preacher for years. while I was fighting professionally. And I don't remember, it was like maybe 4 fights in. Miguel, the matchmaker for the Hook and Shoot show, said, we need to give you a name. And the movie The Saint had just come out. And because I was a preacher, he goes, we're going to call you The Saint. So my fight nickname was The Saint, John the Saint Renken. And then I took a fight in Japan in 2000. I fought Akira Soji in Pride. And when the Japanese were asking me questions, they had no word for saint.
Okay.
And the closest word they had was fighting preacher.
Okay.
Well, basically, that's how they translated it, because they don't have a word.
Right.
So they called me the fighting preacher.
I love it. So walk me through real quick, just your numbers. So 70 fights, 6-time world champion. Walk me through some of that. Like that's incredible. Yeah.
So my first title belt was the Hook and Shoot Championship, which is where I was nominated and then became one of their very first Hall of Famers.
Oh, wow.
And then I was a Kentucky Hall of Famer for MMA, because I was really, first generation fighter. I started fighting when the UFC basically first started.
Right.
I think they were on maybe UFC 5 when I started fighting.
Okay.
Maybe.
That is cool.
Maybe 6.
Sure.
But there was somewhere in there.
Right.
5 or 6. Because I was actually there live when Dan Severn fought Ken Shamrock. So,
okay.
I'd already started fighting by that point. So somewhere in that 5 to 7 range, maybe 5 or 6. I don't remember.
Right.
So I won the Hook and Shoot title. My second title was the IFC Championships. And Travis Fulton, Chael Sonnen were some of the guys in that tournament. And I fought the lower weight class, and I won the lower weight class. And then I won the Extreme Fighting Championships.
Nice.
Man, it was different back then, because I would just show up at an event with my fight gear in the car. Sometimes I had fights and sometimes I didn't.
Oh,
and I would just take whatever fight they would give me. I didn't care how much they weighed. I fought guys that were 330 pounds. I fought guys that were 250.
Wow.
And I was 160.
You were 160.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I fought my career between 160 and 183.
Oh my gosh. And you're fighting guys 300 pounds.
Yep.
What height at 160?
I was 5'10".
Okay. Wow.
5'10". So I would fight guys. I fought for a show down on the border of Mexico. My opponent, Rangel, was 275 pounds, 6'2".
Gee.
I didn't care, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. And I admire that passion. So you've had a chance to Swiss.
In my weight class, I was almost undefeated in my weight class. If I fought in my weight class, I very rarely lost.
Nice.
My record, even though I have so many fights, my record's not that good, because I was fighting guys 2 and 3 times bigger.
Sure. Just to get in. So you had a chance to
see. Like, I wasn't, it wasn't about becoming the world's best in a weight class, or, for me, it was just like, I just wanted to be in the cage of my life.
That's amazing. Takes a lot of heart as well. So you've had a chance to spend time with Dana White and Joe Rogan, who all in that arena. And what was that like? Especially in the early days with Dana White just building the business.
Well, so you got to remember, I was fighting before Dana White bought the UFC.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so you were there early. Wow, okay.
Early. As a matter of fact, I cornered Sean Shirk in one of his title fights when Dana had bought it. It was up in Connecticut. What was that? UFC 35-ish?
Right.
And I cornered Sean Shirk.
Yes.
So, I mean, so I brought those guys to Fort Campbell, and we did the Fort Campbell Fight for the Troops.
Right.
Joe Rogan, Dana White. I've got pictures with Forrest Griffin and Chuck Liddell, and they trained with us for a week down at 5th Special Forces Group. There's a video online of them training with us.
So at what point did you transition to training special forces?
2000.
Okay. So you'd already been in UFC and fighting for a while?
I knew in the UFC.
Okay. Gotcha.
I was just around that circle.
Gotcha. And then you transitioned to training the special forces. What?
That transition, I was doing both at
the same time. Gotcha. So you've done so much in your career. I'm amazed. What's intriguing about it is how you were able to do it simultaneously.
So I don't know if it's ADHD or if I'm crazy, but all my buddies all make fun of me because I've always got 3, 4, 5 things going on at the same time.
Right.
So
now, and that's probably an important business lessons of sorts. So what I find intriguing is what you mentioned at the start of the program. COVID changed what you were able to do because it looks like you had to move from that training of special forces to finding a new path. And
so there's a couple of things there. This was already on the horizon for me because I'm 51 now. I turned 52 this month.
Okay.
Right. So COVID, I was 47, 48.
Right.
Right. So, or 47, about to turn 48 when COVID hits. Man, those guys were the same age every year.
Right.
Right. Because I'm always training new Green Berets.
Right.
So they're 23, 24, 25, and I'm fighting them every morning at 48, 49, or 45, 46, 47. So my body was already telling me, hey, bro, it's kind of time to figure out something else.
Right. See, so and I know we're about to wrap up, but I had this conversation with a good friend of mine.
Keep going, and we have to break at 5:30.
Okay. And so what's fascinating to me that I've been talking to friends about is knowing when to know that it's that time. Right. I don't know if you watched the last Mike Tyson fight and it broke my heart.
I did. It broke my heart too. And I told everybody that. I was like, what is he doing? I mean, so he's 7 years older than I am.
Right.
Now, for $20 million, would I fight Mike Tyson? Yeah, I'm dumb enough. I probably could too. So I get it on one hand. On the other hand, I'm going, Mike, what are you doing? He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
I would not want to fight 28-year-olds anymore.
It's hard. No matter how great a condition you are as you start to age, it's just tough.
Body is, he had injuries going into that fight because he's not young anymore.
Right.
Bodies don't heal like that. And, so on one hand, I get it, and there's always, you see this in professional athletes, right? They get to a place where for whatever reason, they just can't let it go.
Right.
Because there's so much of their identity is wrapped up in who they were instead of who they are.
Right.
And I think for everybody, whether they're an entrepreneur or, maybe they've had a W-2 their whole life.
Right. And what was fun, though, speaking of age, I was absolutely rooting for Tom Brady when he moved to Tampa Bay in his 40s and was able to win a Super Bowl.
He was 45 when he won.
He was up there. Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah. And, there are those once in a generational kind of guys, and Mike Tyson, I think, I'm not saying that Tom Brady's not unique and special because he is, and he's my favorite football player. Right. I absolutely love everything about him. However, football is different than MMA and boxing.
Right. I agree with you there.
And I'm not saying that Tom Brady didn't take hard hits, and I'm not trying to diminish what he did. But it's very different in a combat sport than it is in any other sport.
It is. That's a lot of pounding.
Yeah. So, and I want to say that with the utmost respect because I really do love Tom Brady. Right. But you can't do what we do in your late 40s.
And LeBron James is about to turn 40. Yeah. This year, and so for him to still be in the league, and it's kind of cool seeing him play with his son now as well in the league.
Yeah. And again, and no disrespect to LeBron, right? But it is very different to play basketball in your 40s versus getting punched in your face in your 40s. There's some biological things that happen as we age. Our brain dehydrates by it's just a small percentage every year once you start getting your late 30s. Well, in combat sports, that makes a huge difference.
Interesting.
Because you're taking blunt force trauma to the skull.
Right, right. So, John, what's next for you now? You have this amazing career journey across different segments, from the fighting to the service. What's next for you in the business? And as you look at growing and scaling, what are you up to in the next couple of years? What's your game plan?
Over the next 5 years, we have a goal. We're going to place over 500 veterans into careers that are paying them at a base of somewhere around $65,000, $75,000, with the potential for them through commissions to make over $100,000.
Nice.
And my goal is really to be at a place where within 5 years I could retire if I choose to.
Okay.
Now I'm a knucklehead, so I'm not going to retire even if I had the money to retire.
Right.
Because I like working, I like serving people, I like helping people, and I think that's one of my favorite things about what I'm doing is everything I've ever done outside of MMA has always been about other people.
Right.
MMA was about me, about me proving to myself who I am. And everything that I'm doing right now is about serving other people and helping them get on track. But some of my big goals is that, and I have 2 books I'm writing right now. Sharper Than a Two-Edged Sword, which is about the mindset of being a warrior, how it applies to business. And then I'm writing Divorce According to Sun Tzu because I went through a really bad divorce. And I'm going to talk about my story and the story of other men that have come to me with their stories. It's going to be about how to use the principles of Sun Tzu, like I did, to either win custody of your children or as a father to be more present in their life.
So I don't want you to give away the book, but I find what you just mentioned about being present. Now, there are a lot of studies that discuss the importance of still being present, particularly for fathers, and how that reduces even prison entry. And so I don't have this.
How controversial does your show allow me to get? Because I'll say something that's backed by stats.
No, go for it.
Okay. So the vast majority, it's something like 90% of divorces, the mother gets full-time custody and the father gets every other weekend.
Right.
85% of all criminals, regardless of race, sex, or creed, come from single mother homes.
Right.
If there's not a reason why fathers should have more custody, it's right there in front of our faces.
Right. I think certainly we've got to figure that out because that impacts business. It impacts the stability of our communities. Just making sure that people have options, they have hope, they have something to work towards. And it reminds me of something that I was going to say to you a moment ago. What I found in working with the military and in creating career opportunities for service members transitioning is someone told me this, say, Ronnie, in the service, what they had, they knew what they were going to do nearly every day. They knew that they had to report to a certain place. They kind of knew what the goal and the mission was going to be. When they transitioned to the private sector, they didn't have that same focus on mission. And that was really tough for them. And so I suspect you have some insight on that, if you don't mind sharing. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things. What branch were you in?
I didn't serve.
Oh, okay. All right. So the first thing is in the Army, we're taught from the beginning that everything is about the commander's intent.
Right.
If you don't start with commander's intent first, then you don't know if you can actually do the job.
Right.
So I would encourage anybody listening, whether you served or not, is you have to look high level first. What's the commander's intent? At the end of the day, if you're a salesman, you're a plumber, you're an electrician. I use this example just on Wednesday. If I'm an HVAC guy and I go to a house, I know ultimately the commander's intent, the client,
right,
is that they want to be cool in the summer and warm in the winter.
Right.
If I understand the commander's intent, and I know from the company side, their commander's intent, you go out there, you make the customer happy so we can make money.
Right.
If I know those two things, then I can do my job with excellence. Because all I have to do is show up at your house and go, hey, show me where your HVAC is and I'll have your warm or cool in 30 minutes.
Nice. Now, how about you?
Show up in a house and you're roasting to death because you're in Texas. And I go, look, man, just show me where the unit is. I will keep your house clean and I'll be in and out and you'll be cool in 30 seconds. You're going to like me.
Exactly. You've got a friend at that point, right? For life. They will call you back again.
Yeah. And in Tennessee, it's been cold the last 2 days. If I show up to your house and your heating unit is broke down, say, I'm going to have the heat back on in 30 minutes. Where's your unit?
Nice. So, John, so we'll wrap up with this, but so you're a leadership coach, and I like what you just mentioned from a sales and making people happen and understanding that mission. What else do you provide to people that you're helping to train to do well in leadership position, to do well in sales? What value, what concept can you tell our listening audience that are John's principles for success in business?
I think the biggest thing is mindset.
Okay.
The reason I do the things I do is because I don't believe that you can beat me. And I apply that to business.
Yes.
I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to outperform you. And I'm in a position where when I'm coaching people, I'm trying to bridge to them my faith in them. And if we can adopt the mindset that we can have what we want, if we work and if we have that mindset, the world's available to you.
Right.
Most of my clients see a 50 to a 60% increase in revenue. I've got a client that saw a 512% increase. I have another one that had a 198% increase. And it's about the mindset.
And when you say client, you're talking about other companies that are hiring your people? And
they're hiring me to consult them.
Okay. Gotcha. That's huge. A 560%?
512.
So how did you achieve that? What was it within?
They did.
Yeah, but what was it though? They hired you to help train them. So what was it that you helped them understand? I know what you just mentioned, but say again.
It's mindset. Because at the end of the day, business is business, right?
It is.
Like sales is sales. Like I'm not going to come and teach you some new ninja technique on sales.
Right.
Like sales is sales. The principles of a Zig Ziglar or a Tracy, Brian Tracy or John Maxwell, those principles have been around forever.
Yeah.
Those principles are solid. And we're in a generation where we have access to more information than anyone has ever had.
Agreed.
Anyone. What makes a difference between the next Grant Cardone and Bobby
right
down the street?
Right.
The difference is the mindset. That's the only difference.
Right.
And so what I work on a lot with my clients is a little bit of out-of-box thinking and trying to connect with more of the problem-solving side. But ultimately, it's that I'm trying to really transfer to you my belief in that you can do this.
Right.
And if you have somebody that believes in you, it's a little bit easier to believe in yourself.
So you have to tell me this then. So when you have someone come into your office and you're coaching them and they make every excuse possible, what do you tell them? Exactly. Now,
don't put up with it. There's no excuses, man. It's just like MMA. Every fight that I fought that I lost, there was nobody but to blame but myself.
Right.
And that's the mentality that you have to approach business with. There's nobody to blame. There's nobody to make excuses for. Right now, I've got a couple of clients that are in mortgage. And the market is horrible right now for mortgage and real estate. And I pull up their city and I go, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
Here's why I don't want to hear that. Because in Dallas, Texas, last month, 400 homes sold.
I love it.
Why are you not 40 of them?
Right.
There's no excuses.
Right.
Poor performance is poor performance. Get off your ass and let's go to work.
I love it. I love it.
Right? And so that's all about a mindset. Now, you could pander people and you could put up with their excuses, but I don't.
I like it. Yep. There's a group that I've been working with. They're a leadership consulting group made up of former service members, 20 plus years retired. And their premise is the same. Let's take some of these principles that we've learned in the military and apply them. And you're doing something similar. You're taking your military experience, you're taking your MMA experience, and you're saying, you can do this. Here's how. Let me show you how. But the excuses I'm not going to tolerate. Let's get out there and take action. Let's execute.
Yeah.
All right. So, John, I'm going to leave you with the last word there for, those are great points and advice. We're Business Decoded. We're all about trying to break down becoming successful. So any final lessons, ideas that you want to share with someone listening and they want to be a success story like you?
Yeah. So I would say this. I would ask yourself this question, and this question's been played out, but I put something on the backside. If you knew that you weren't going to fail, what would you do? And most people know that answer,
right?
Because that question's been kind of played out. But here's my question. If you knew you weren't going to fail, what would you do? And then my follow-up question is, why aren't you doing it?
Right.
Who cares if you fail?
Right. John, and what's fascinating about that, I've spoken to a number of groups, and one of the things that I emphasize to particularly entrepreneurs, what often keeps people, and this is what I think you're getting to, that keeps people from doing what they feel they need to do is fear, right? They're afraid to fail you.
Yeah. So we talk about this a lot with our veterans. I'm going to give you a choice. Here's your choice. You can take a base play, but the most you'll ever make is 125. Or you could make 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, or zero, but it's all on you.
Right.
Which do you take and why? And what I'm looking for, are you more motivated by security or are you more motivated by opportunity?
I love it. I love it. And you can distinguish between those two people, right? Do you direct them one way or the other?
They tell me.
They did.
More motivated by security or opportunity. I'm going to take the base salary.
Right.
So that means you need a security net. That means you're not a hunter, and that's okay. Like, not everybody hunts, right? But if you tell me I'd rather bet on myself, those are the people I'm really looking.
I love it. So a good point of advice for our listeners is sometimes it's good to bet on yourself and then go hunt.
It's not sometimes. It's always better to bet on yourself.
I love it. John, thank you.
Go back.
Yeah.
You can always go back. If you fail, you can always go get another W-2.
I agree. John, it's been quite a pleasure having you on the program.
I appreciate it, man. I got a little riled up. So hopefully everybody in Texas is okay with it.
Oh, absolutely. Then people are listening to the program worldwide. So I think you could have an impact all across the world. John, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.